The perfect trade. What is a perfect trade? What do you think? It is important to find the perfect trade? Yes, it is. You feel very committed and feel very good if you trade a situation you prefer for your personality. And if you like it to trade breakouts, wait for the real and only situation where a breakout trade is coming. And that will change your whole trading life. You have no idea how important it is to trade only opportunities working with your personality. And if this is interesting for you, please come into my nice video and listen. And I give you a big gift inside of this video. You will see it. And I translated everything with AI because my English is not perfect, but I think it is perfect enough that you love it.
So, does the perfect trade actually exist? I can tell you, for me, it does exist. The only question is, when is it the perfect trade for you? For example, I love it when I can take a counter trade, meaning I swim against the current, and I have the patience and ability to let that trade run afterwards. So I like to turn a counter trading setup into a really long-term trade, in quotation marks, which can sometimes even run for an hour. Why is it perfect for me? Because to me, the trade is on a smart and deep level. And in addition, the profit margin compared to the associated risk is simply gigantic. And those are the kinds of approaches that, in my eyes, make for the perfect trades for me. And maybe for you, the perfect trade is one where you get in, it pops quickly, and you get right back out. That's definitely possible. Or for you, the perfect trade is that one big shot, where you can make a gigantic amount of money. The only question is that sustainable? And does that kind of thing happen often? And that's why, for me, there isn't just one perfect trade, but rather there is the perfect trade. And by that, I mean the trade that feels really good to me and gives me a huge mathematical advantage. And that's what I love. So, what I want to show you here is a typical perfect trade. Trade for me from my perspective. Why is that? I'd like to explain that to you. The first thing I love is when the market moves into a price range that makes sense to me. Here, for example, I had a very clear, strong resistance area where the market, let's say, moved up to quite steadily. Now, I'm typically a counter trader, so the next step I look at is, what do the volumes look like? And as you can see here, you can already tell that while the volumes are still rising, especially at the tops, there's nothing happening anymore. That means I have an indication that the momentum might be gone. Now the next question is, where should this trade go? And I can say very clearly, I always have specific areas where I want to go. In this case, for example, I take the value area high of the current day as my target area. Why is that? Because I know that the probability is relatively high, since we have strong stability, that the market can continue to rise. Supply and demand are definitely pointing upwards here. But I am a counter trader, and I love it when there are exaggerations. And if you take a look at the time here, you'll see it's midday, and during lunchtime, there's usually relatively little volume in the market. And you can also see that down here that there are no more extremes like here and here, when a lot of money was just pushed into the markets. Yes, the midday period is often 2, 3, 1 p.m. depending on when the guys are on their break. You can see that quite well. And you can't always say that everyone goes to lunch at 12. You really have to look at when there's just not much in the books. That's the kind of thing I like to look at, and then I see how I can best manage my trade. And in this case, it was just clear to me that I had to close my position above here. And so I simply had a risk of about 15 points, but a planned range of nearly 80 points. So that's a really great risk-reward ratio. Check mark, I love it. Check mark, I love counter trading. That's just my thing. What else is there? I love illiquidity at the tops. Why? Because I can simply see that supply and demand are fading. And now, the most important thing of all. The whole thing took place in a price range where large, aggressive traders had already been active before. And for me, that's the absolute priority. It has to have that, otherwise I wouldn't take such a trade. Because if I just do it somewhere in the middle, that's not a good thing. And as you can see here, I've now linked 4 things together that give me a good feeling. And that's how the perfect trade can come about for me, because I feel good about it. Because I have logic, because I have depth, and because I want to be smarter than the market. That may be silly, but that's my way. And I just love trading against the trends. I also love it quick and dirty when a fast breakout happens, but I didn't trade that here. Instead, I want to do my counter trade here, just as it suits my personality. Now let's take a look at the whole thing, how the trade actually played out. Here you can see that's where I entered, and here is where I exited. And if you refer to what we just saw, you can already tell I exited earlier than I had planned. Why did I do that? I'd like to show you that. There was increased volume here, and for those who paid attention in previous webinars, an insight was generated here for us. That means I have what's called a counter trading setup, and when I see something like that, I exit my position. Why do I do that? Let me switch back once more to show you. Look at what we can see here, and if I look to the left, I notice there were large volumes here, and at these high volumes, even though I had planned to go a bit lower, a counter setup appeared. And since I am a counter trader by nature, I don't just let the trade run further at that point. Instead, I choose to exit the trade to manage my risk and stick to my strategy. I can tell you it did continue later on, but at first there was a reaction. And this particular reaction was simply due to the fact that strong hands, meaning influential market participants, came into play at this specific price level and generated a setup here, which meant that I just had to say, I'm getting out. Because I don't like it when I get a big counter move just because I'm not able to react to this dynamic setup. And that's exactly what's awesome about it. As a day trader, you always have the opportunity to react to the dynamics. And that's why I simply went ahead and said, this is where I end my perfect trade. And again, with sense, logic, and reason, because I understand, okay, there were big players here. Global money generated a short-term support area there, which doesn't originate from the context. What else do I see here? I see a setup here that I know is a counter trading setup. And what else do I see? I see increased trading volumes. That means the probability that a reaction will be triggered here is simply high. And when I put all these components together, I just don't want the market to make a big pullback first and then continue. But what I truly want and genuinely love is, for example, if it comes back to this particular price area right here, and I get another valid setup or signal here, then I will enter into another trade, and then I know that this price area here is weak, showing some weakness, and then I know that with the next trade here, I will reach the target that I have already predefined in advance. And that way, I have 2 trades that are smart. But I wanted to present to you my perfect trade, and I hope you can take something from it for yourselves that you realize. As a truly good trader, you have to be dynamic if you want to feel good about it. You have to trade in a way that suits you. Then you have a really well-rounded thing, and that's just great. To sum it up, it clearly means trade your setups at the levels that suit you with the good gut feeling that your strategy matches your personality. And if you integrate all of that, then you have your perfect trade. And then go ahead and remember, less is more. Make use of great good trades for yourself. And beforehand, set signals where you want to see them, the setups that are effective for you. And plan your markets in such a way that, from a contextual perspective, they are clearly effective for you. So that you're not swimming against the current, and if you do, only when it makes sense. And when you go with the flow, do it when you're at price levels where you also expect an explosive move. And all of this you can use in such a way that you work through the contextual phases very cleverly, step by step for yourself. And then you'll have your perfect trades. Thank you for listening, and I hope this was really helpful for you. Thank you very much.